Hi there, Sandra here from Create in Spain. This is the front panel of a Christmas card, and I don't know if you can actually see it. I have a very faint outline here. It's got hair in the way, and the outline is done with a glue pen. So it's very, very faint. I can just about see it, but the idea is that it's just giving me an outline to fill in with a normal glue pen. Now I confess I did try doing this with a glue pen in the machine with a fill. This particular card didn't like it much. It actually soaked through the card and it made a complete and utter mess. So I decided it's easier to just get the line fill done, or the lines done, and I can just quickly fill them in and then use it as I want to. Now when I've got this done, I'll have to wait for a couple of minutes for it to dry. It remains tacky when it's dried. That's the whole idea of using this Zig glue pen, as opposed to anything else. So I think that has done it. I'll leave that to dry for a couple of minutes before I do my foiling. Now, I don't have an awful lot in the way of, well, I don't have any heat foils or anything like that, but I do have some nail foils which I could use, but I've got this stuff and I really like using it, and it's really nice and bright and colourful. And I've got it in 3 different colourways, so I'll happily use that instead. One thing I will do, however, is turn my fan off before I start using it, otherwise this stuff is going to go everywhere. While that's drying, I'll show you something else I have. I have made a stencil of the complete design, so if you want to actually just draw it and colour it in, then you can do that. It will still need the frame because that's how it's designed to be used, with a frame, but if you wanted to colour it in with alcohol markers or whatever, you could use alcohol markers on it. And the other bit I've got here is a stencil which I'm going to use just to add some texture to the top half of the card. I've switched my fan off and I've got a pair of tweezers ready, and so I'm going to start adding some of this foil. I just think it's lovely stuff, and you get a really large amount of it for a relatively small amount of money. There will be an Amazon link down below if you want to have a look at that. I do like these rollers for clear up, they are very handy. So I'll put it through the machine and I just have to break it apart. And there you can see I have my embossed image. So the next step is to add my frame, which I need to cut. This is the frame that I've cut out, but I did realise that it looked a little bit odd when I put it down. It looked a little bit odd with no colour in those bows. So I went in with my thinner quickie glue pen and just traced the lines and filled it in with that, and I shall wait for it to dry for a minute or 2 before I put some more foil on. So the other thing that I want to say is that I have noticed, because I know these files were cut the same size, when it's embossed, so that has made a very slight difference to the way that the frame actually lines up. Not a vast amount of difference, but a little bit of a difference. So that line there should not be there really, truly, and it's just a little bit off on here. Not enough to really worry me. I'll probably trim the top part of that down slightly, and what I'll do is I will attempt, when I put it together, to line up that loop and then do my trimming elsewhere. And when I stick it on, what I'll do is I will put this down on my mat, and then I will glue that and I'll put the card over the top of that. It's easier to line up that way, and you're less likely to get it stretching out of shape when you do it that way. So this card, I know there are some times when something really, really simple just doesn't go right when it should do. And this card has been one of those. It's not like this is a really complicated design at all. I think the craft can't even talk. I think the craft gremlins are out in force today. I'm using the Zig two-way glue because it gives me a bit more drying time than my usual glues do, and because you've got so many areas to get the glue on. If I use some glues, they'll be dry by the time I finish. The first parts of it, won't be working anymore, which would be a pain in the neck, particularly after spending so much time trying to get this card done. Right, I think that'll do the job. Maybe I've got a bit of fluff there. Get rid of that. There's a little bit of trimming to be done. Now, in case you're thinking that I'm exaggerating, that things don't really go wrong, this is an example of what went wrong. What I tried to do was to draw a line, put some glue behind it, and then thought, oh yeah, I can put glitter in there. And I wanted different colours, and of course the glitter went in places I didn't want it to go. I put glue in places that I shouldn't have put the glue. And yeah, in general, a mess. Right, this is another one that I did, and this one isn't messed up quite as badly. It was messed up in that I had to trim the card down. Now, with this one, I haven't completed it yet because I thought I would, instead of putting glue in, I would probably colour it with markers or whatever. But what I would say is that it's probably easier to colour with markers which have a brush tip if you're going to do this, or watercolour brushes, because if you try and do it with a harder tip, you'll find it much harder to get into the edges without ruining your markers, because the card can be a bit, well, it can be a bit rough on it. This is actually a very smooth glitter card, but just the fact that it's got edges to rub up against, you can damage your nibs doing that. So go for something which has a brush tip, or something like this, where you're just using a roller ball or something to do that instead. I've coloured this one in mostly just with felt tips. I did do a little bit of watercolour brush pen, but that wasn't the best option for this particular thing. So I'm now going to go in with a little bit of glitter. This is a Sakura jelly roll pen, and it's one of the Stardust ones, I think they're called. And this is completely colourless, but it has glitter. You can get them in all sorts of colours. Highlight certain areas. There we go, that'll do. Here are the two finished cards, the one that I coloured in with markers and the one that I did with the foil. I do tend to prefer the foil one. Right, when I was cutting this front panel down, it still didn't go according to plan. I managed to catch the black card edge in the blade, and it ended up with a wobbly edge. Typical. Okay, those craft gremlins have really been getting at me today. But instead of throwing it out, I decided to rectify it simply by using a black alcohol marker and a ruler to straighten it back up again. And I even went over the edge with the alcohol marker just to make sure you couldn't see the bits of white that were left. I think I've managed to get away with it. I think you'd have to look very closely to see if there's any error on there. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to waste a card front that I took so much effort to get right in the first place. Alright, if you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, leave your comments down below, and subscribe if you haven't. I'm always very pleased to see new subscribers. And if you've not seen me there before, join me on Create in Spain on Facebook. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.